Everyone wants to be in love, right? You get that euphoric, warm, and fuzzy feeling where your stomach flips when you see or even think about that special person in your life. Your palms begin to sweat, your heart skips a beat, and your blood pressure rises to dangerous levels. Sounds like you're sick with something, doesn't it? You really are sick, and this is called love. At this moment, your fragile mental balance is directly dependent on your emotions and physical state, which seems to change every hour. And if you think this only happens to women, you are deeply mistaken. Even the most masculine men experience at least a few of these symptoms when they are truly in love. But for a man, everything becomes much more complicated. There is an innate, primal rivalry for his chosen mate, which is directed by the gene, urging him to mate and reproduce. And I think God, in his infinite wisdom, made it so that even the most primitive men liked it. Think about it, if mating wasn't so damn enjoyable, would you want to do it all the time? I once read an article written by some psychologist who claimed that there are three types of love. Sexual love, which can be called love desire. Romantic love, which I wrote about above. And finally, love, in which you have a strong and deep affection for your partner. The last type sounds like the second one to me, but damn, I'm no expert. But he said what it all comes down to is that if there is no sexual satisfaction in the relationship, there will be no long-term relationship, as one of the two will eventually look elsewhere for satisfaction one way or another. Hell, I didn't worry about it. I never had anyone complain about it. And if I had to, I could always take the little blue pill and make it through the night. It doesn't matter when you're in love, life is beautiful, it's like you're walking on air. It's like one of those ads where the cost of certain things like dinner, flowers, and a card are added up. But at the end it says, your wife's love is priceless. It's cute, and even something like that makes you smile. Now let's go to the dark side. The opposite of love is hate or something like that. They say there is a fine line between love and hate, and now I understand what they are saying. Just like with love, your blood pressure also rises, your heart pounding in your chest, but instead of doing somersaults, your stomach tightens into a knot. Your body temperature rises, and you feel a burning sensation both physically and mentally. At this point, however, life is not so good, and you are definitely not walking on air. Now I'm somewhere in the middle. I still love my wife, Carol, but at the same time I want to wrap my hands around her neck and strangle her for what she did to us. The only logical reason she did this, in my opinion, is that she thought she could get away with it, and if she got caught, I would forgive her. And besides, as she put it, we weren't even married then. I wish I could say she couldn't be that stupid, but actually I think she could. But now I have the monumental task of trying to understand what she did and find a way to move on or choose a different path. Our life together began like 10,000 other college couples across the country on any given Friday night. A party that we both attended and where we both got a little out of control. My name is Steve Moore, and although I'm already out of college, that doesn't stop me from going to a couple of parties. Friday was the day before homecoming, and there must have been about 50 parties going on all over campus. Two of my friends, who had been studying for 6 years, invited me to their home, saying that there would be a real showdown. They were renting a 4-room house, so they said if I got too drunk, I would have a place to sleep. It all started around 8, and by 10 o'clock, I didn't feel anything anymore. I remember watching a speed drinking competition, 5 guys and 5 girls, and I'm not sure, but somehow I got roped into it. I don't know if I won or lost, because the next thing I remember was waking up in a strange bed and not alone. My body immediately began to take revenge for the night before, so I knew I was still alive, but someone must have shit in my mouth because that's exactly what it tasted like. Even though I had a terrible headache and it was painful to even open my eyes, I had to see who or what was lying next to me in the bed. I looked and thanked dear Jesus for my good fortune. A blonde, I assumed, with blue eyes and, importantly, a magnificent body, lay naked next to me. When I moved a little, she pressed herself even closer to me. It was like having a big warm puppy next to you in bed, but much better. I probably lifted the blanket 4 or 5 times, memorizing what she looked like. It's a shame my phone was out of reach because I knew my memory wouldn't be able to capture her beauty. Hell, I didn't even mind the small trail of saliva dripping from the corner of her mouth onto my chest. I still don't know how I managed to free myself from her without waking her up, but I did it. She just hugged my pillow for me. I know I'm a guy, but I needed another look, especially at her beautiful ass. This time the phone played my role. Keith, I quietly called my friend, who was also having fun with some young lady in his bed. Dude, what time is it? No idea. All I want to know is who is this girl in bed with me? Do you have a girlfriend? He was a great help. I told him to go back to bed. I went to the bathroom and even rinsed my mouth with the mouthwash I found there. I was starting to feel human again. I snuck back into bed, crawled under the covers, moved closer, hugged her, and waited. She was soft and warm. She stirred and began to wake up. I pretended to be asleep. Damn it, I heard her whisper as she looked around and realized she was no longer in Kansas. She lifted the blanket and must have noticed that she was naked, and one of my legs was stuck between hers. I laughed inside, but kept my eyes closed, only occasionally peeking. Lying on her back, she tried to pull her legs out from under mine, but I wasn't ready for the fun to stop. I snored and rolled over almost on top of her, making sure my arm was wrapped around her waist. I enjoyed it immensely. I let this continue for a few more seconds before moving my right hand to her left breast. I couldn't hold it in anymore when I heard her whisper, "Oh my God." I don't know if she heard me giggle or felt me start to laugh, but I felt a blow to my side and heard the word asshole. How long have you been awake? Probably about 20 minutes, I replied. And you've been groping me all this time? No, I was just watching you sleep. You know you drool when you sleep. I don't drool, she said indignantly. Do you want to see the photos? You better not take pictures of me, otherwise you'll ogie me. She started screaming. Don't worry, what kind of idiot do you think I am? The one who takes advantage of a drunk girl, that's what. Listen, I first saw you about half an hour ago. It was you who held on to me. How we ended up in the same bed together is still a little hazy. I don't remember anything after 10:30 last night. Besides, even though I was drunk last night, I don't think I was even capable of what we're both thinking at this very moment. I don't remember, but I'm sure I wasn't wearing a condom. She didn't look too happy at that moment. Look, my name is Steve Moore, for what it's worth. And you? Carol, and that's all you need to know right now. I don't know how this happened. I was with two of my girlfriends last night, and I know they wouldn't leave me just like that. She was starting to get more than worried. Do any of your friends have short red hair? Yes, she said a little hesitantly. Put something on and follow me. 3 minutes later, we found the first of her other two friends in Keith's bed. Connie, what the hell are you going to do? She said, pulling her friend's hand, who was not moving. Leave me alone, she began to say, but before she could finish, she jumped up and ran to the bathroom. I swear, from the sound of it, I think she had a pinched lung or kidney. She was still there when we went looking for friend number 2. Rachel was awake and not drunk, and she and Tom were, so to speak, enjoying the moment when we approached them. Rachel, what the hell are you doing? Do you know he doesn't wear a condom? Isn't it funny how girls notice? To me, well, I couldn't take my eyes off her breasts. Carol, I'm taking some pills, and if you don't mind, can you give us some privacy? We got the hint. My friend's easily accessible, she said, leaning against the wall. I chuckled. Steve, I'm not like that, and I can almost certainly tell you that we didn't do this. I think you pleased me, and I know for sure that I attacked you, I replied, looking at her. And how do you know this? You said you don't remember anything from last night? I didn't say I remembered, I just know I did. Why don't we go have breakfast? It's entirely possible that your friends won't be ready to leave for at least an hour or so, and I could really use something in my stomach. Judging by the look in her eyes, she thought for a second or two and then told me what the hell. We were already full from breakfast when I attacked her. Since we're almost close, why don't you let me take you out to dinner this weekend? Look, you seem like a nice guy, but I don't hang out with sorority guys or jocks. Great, me too, I answered in a smart tone. At 5'10" and 180 pounds, you should know that I am not an athlete, and I graduated 2 years ago. Tom and Keith are just good friends of mine, but they are essentially students for life. I don't have rich parents who could pay for my education. I served for 2 years before going to college, and the G-bill paid for about half of my tuition, and I pay the rest monthly. Since I'm neither, there's no legitimate reason for you not to go out with me on Saturday, is there? Her mind was working a mile a minute. Okay, one date, and we'll see how it goes. And don't think that just because I'm dating you that I'm going to sleep with you. Never crossed my mind. I was lying. Dinner was great. The food was good, but the conversation was better. Carol was in her second semester of her junior year studying international marketing. She had an older brother by 2 years and a younger sister by 1.5 years, and came from an upper-middle-class family. By the end of the evening, I could tell that she was Daddy's little girl who got pretty much everything she wanted. I told her on a dime what it was like to come from a family of 7 and left it at that. Overall, our first date went pretty well. As I pulled up to her house, I saw the curtains open a little and then close, nothing like an audience. I walked around, opened her door, and walked her to the door like a gentleman. I kissed her once, then twice more before she stopped me. "My father is watching us," she whispered. "Do you want to give him a show?" "Are you crazy? You're talking about my father." I think that meant no. "Do you want to go outside again, or was this my first and only shot?" "We can go somewhere, but remember that I'm still in school, and that's first and foremost. Besides, I'm planning on dating other guys, so if you can handle that, yes, I'll go out with you again." "Be still, my heart," I thought as Carol laid out the ground rules. "Well, let me know when you're free and available, and I'll come up with something fun," I said, handing her my phone number. "Do you want me to call you?" said a shocked Carol. "Well, we need to work around your schedule, not mine, so you'll have to let me know when you can fit me in." She gave me my number back. "Friday, 8:30, dress nice." "It's Friday, and are you sure you don't want to give your dad at least a little show?" I kissed her again. Then she pushed me away and said, "I'll see you on Friday." The girl was hot. After Friday, we started dating for real. I met her parents, and she met my family, and neither of us were surprised when both families liked the other. As I told her, I was a real find. Okay, I wasn't the best catcher in the world, but at least you didn't have to beat me off with an ugly stick. I was good-looking, I had thick light brown hair, and a body with toned abs that I was kind of proud of. I was a certified mechanical engineer working for B&H Enterprises and making twice as much as my friends, even the ones who actually had a real job. I went somewhere and wanted someone special to be next to me. On the other hand, she was a real find, if only because she had a magnificent body, and for a blonde, she was smart as hell. She was a full-time student and had a 3.5 GPA. Everything went fine for the next 4.5 months. I didn't see her as much as I would have liked, but we made up for it when we were together. The first time we made love sober was like something out of an adult movie. I fell in love with my blonde, cunning girl more and more every day, and then everything went to pieces. Carol said she was busy on Friday, so Keith and I went to a sports bar and then to an out-of-the-way restaurant for dinner. I was checking out this place to take Carol there next weekend. It was something like a bed and breakfast with a cozy restaurant. The restaurant had only 10 tables and was connected to an old Victorian house which had only 5 guest rooms. "I don't care if you buy me dinner or not. I'm not going to sleep with you, period," Keith said with a grin as he looked at the menu. "There isn't much choice, and everything is quite expensive. Maybe you should choose another place," was his final comment before ordering. He chose steak, and I chose salmon. We were sipping a couple of drinks with our food when he suddenly stopped and started staring ahead and then at me. "What?" "Steve, I think Carol is here," he said, almost doubting his own eyes. "Where?" "In the far right corner at the back of the hall." I turned around, and although it was quite dark, I could see a blonde girl, but her back was turned to us. How can you be sure at this distance, especially if her back is to us? She turned sideways and was kissing that guy. Switch places with me, I asked, swapping our dishes. I spent the next 15 minutes staring at her. If I had the courage, I would go over and find out for sure, but right now I didn't want reality. If I just sat here and wasn't completely sure, I would be happy. Then I saw them start kissing. Damn, it was her. I lost my appetite, and Keith knew from the look on my face that he was right. Let's get out of here, he said, starting to stand up. Sit down, we're not going anywhere. This bitch won't make me leave an expensive dinner, so eat and then we'll leave. Keith knew from my tone that it was better not to argue. I picked at my food and waited. For 20 minutes I waited, and then I got my chance. They finished and got up to leave. The exit was behind us, so they had to walk past our table whether they wanted to or not. I took a deep breath and waited. I knew, of course, that I was the last person she expected to see, and I was surprised that she handled it so well. As she approached our table, our eyes met, and I saw a slight trembling and maybe a little fear. I didn't say anything. I just watched her go. She never turned around. The guy she was with was black, in great shape, and incredibly handsome. If I were a woman, I would probably also pay double attention to him, or even decide to have an affair. I told Keith to sit still, and I stood up and followed them. I watched them leave the main entrance and go to the adjacent bed and breakfast. At least now I knew what she was doing tonight. We finished our dinner, had another drink, and left. I thought she was your girlfriend. Me too. Apparently I was wrong. You want to go back and punch this guy in the face? You've seen him, he'll probably kick both of our asses. Besides, there's no girl worth that kind of pain. Keith drove me home. Our date on Saturday did not take place. I didn't call or come. I thought about it, but decided that I would probably make a scene and get into some trouble, so I stayed home and felt sorry for myself. I liked her until last night anyway, and I would use the word love, but not today. What do they say? Does assuming everything is perfect make you an ass? Well, I felt more than lousy. To give Carol credit, she was calm about it. Her email asked why I didn't come on Saturday night and didn't even mention that I saw her on Friday. Her last question was if I wanted to meet either Friday or Saturday next week. Okay, it was ugly and maybe over the top, but I was angry and felt a little humiliated. Now I have to strap a 6-foot board to my back. She wasn't stupid and would have understood what it meant. I clicked send. I've always liked redheads, and on Friday night I was lucky enough to find two. The first one was cute, but a little arrogant. I left her after one dance. The second one was a little chubby, but she had fiery red long hair, milky white skin, and breasts so large that I almost thought about calling her Mommy. After we left the club, we spent Friday night and most of Saturday at my house. Since Carol was on the pill and neither of us slept with others, I had no reason to buy condoms anymore. A quick check of my nightstand revealed two, but they were both used by 1 a.m. After that, we took a break for sleep. Somewhere around 4, I felt her get up and go to the bathroom. I heard her rinse off the water and then rinse her mouth with my mouthwash. Looks like she's finished sleeping. I stood up, emptied my bladder myself, took a sip of mouthwash, and returned to where she was waiting for me. Lasky, and there were many of them over the next few hours. She wasn't bad, not as good as Carol, which made me wonder how Carol became so good. Call me, she said, passing her number through the window. But next time I hope you'll be better prepared. I understood what she meant, but I knew I wouldn't call. I waved goodbye to her. I was buying some shirts at the mall when I heard her voice behind me. Steve, we need to talk. Without turning around, I replied that we had nothing to talk about. Steve, I care about you, but I never said we were in an exclusive relationship. She was right and even said she would date others when she laid out her terms and rules. Carol, I thought you were my girl, that's all. And I don't even want to think about how many times I came in second place. It gives me goosebumps. I've never done this to you, she said, raising her voice so that people passing by began to pay attention to us. "We need to talk, but not here." She was right. I had been humiliated in public once before, and I wasn't going to let that happen again. We met in a corner of a nearby bar and took a booth in the back. After our drinks were brought, she again began to explain that she had not cheated, although it looked that way. "Had a fun night with your boy Toy, and I thought you didn't date athletes," I added with a slight prick. "He's not an athlete, but we met in the university gym. We've only met a few times, and yes, we've been in bed together." Even though I knew this, hearing it from her was even more painful. "Well, what do you want to talk about?" "About us, about you and me." "There is no you and me anymore. There is only you and your fuck friend. His name is Rick. Okay, so you and your fuck buddy Rick." I didn't back down. "Steve, even if you don't believe it, I really care about you. I just care about Rick too. I'm so confused. Let me clear up this mess. You and I are no longer a couple. I don't share, especially when it comes to sex. So now you can sleep with Rick as much as you want without feeling confused or even guilty." Words dripped from my lips. "But I thought you cared about me." Cared, in the past tense. It all ended when you walked into that hotel with Rick. I hope he has more than me, and it was worth it. She couldn't find anything to answer. I think he had a big one. "So if we're done here, I have a date for the evening, and I don't want to be late, and Rick is probably already waiting for you. Enjoy," were the last words I said to her. I didn't actually have a date. Her emails and calls stopped. About 2 months later, I ran into her mother by chance at the grocery store. We kept meeting in different aisles, and she seemed annoyed, even though I greeted her with a smile and a friendly hello. In the household chemicals department, she laid out everything for me. "How could you leave Carol like that? For no reason at all, you just stopped calling and started seeing someone else. Steve, I never thought you were that kind of person." I was silent for 10 whole seconds. "Donna, how's the little bitch doing?" This confused her. "I didn't leave Carol, she cheated on me, and when you get home today, ask her about Rick. By the way, it was nice seeing you." I collected my thoughts. "Look, I have nothing against you or anyone in your family other than Carol, and I know you didn't raise her like that. So just say hi to her and tell her I wish her the best." I smiled again, but this time I headed towards the cash register. I've become a better person. A week later, at one of the parties, I met Lisa. She was the exact opposite of Carol, brunette with long, sleek hair and big brown eyes. She studied law and, it seemed to me, was more serious and balanced. We started dating and our connection grew stronger every day. I didn't think about Carol anymore, and soon she became just a memory to me. The next day, when I came home, an unpleasant letter was waiting for me. Something along the lines of, "This is not cheating," and "How dare you call me a bitch?" I replied, "Do you prefer the word readily accessible?" She didn't answer. It would have been a lot easier if we lived in a big city like New York, but on campus, everyone congregated in the same places. While hanging out with Keith and Tom, I ran into Carol a few times. I was friendly and smiled, but that was all. It was almost 9 months after our breakup when it finally dawned on me. She was always with company or friends. Rick wasn't there. I really wanted to ask her about Rick, but we weren't together anymore, so it wasn't my business anymore. So I did what any guy who wants answers would do. I asked Keith's new girlfriend, Denmark, to find out for me. Not very cool, but it worked. "She left him shortly after you broke up," she began. "He was only interested in one thing, and when he got it, he stopped caring about her. According to Carol, it ended pretty ugly, and according to her, he will have scars on his left arm to remember her by. Did I do well or no? Girl, I owe you big time." "Big enough to buy me a pair of shoes?" I took $60 out of my wallet. She looked at me. I took out another 25 and handed it to her. "By the way, she's really sorry you two broke up, if you're wondering." At that time, I wasn't sure if I was interested. Now the $10,000 question remained. Am I better off with her or without her? Keith and Tom voted for without, and I voted for with. I won the vote, but I still had to figure out if I could trust her and if she was worth all the trouble. The next 2 times I saw Carol, I tried to smile at her. The first time she looked at me with the strangest expression on her face, as if she was saying, "What's your problem?" But the next time she smiled back at me, I broke the ice. Another 2 weeks passed before I saw her again. I decided that I would not approach her first. In my eyes, she was the one who ruined everything, and I wanted her to make the first move, no matter how long it took. 2 more smiles, and after the third I saw her approach me at the bar where I had gone to get some refills. "How are you?" This was her first careless phrase. "I just want to say that I'm sorry." I stopped her. "It's all in the past. You had your ideas about our relationship and where it was going, and I had my ideas. It's a shame they didn't line up." I played it calmly. "Can I buy you a drink?" "No need, but I'd like to buy you one drink for old time's sake, and just to let you know there are no more hard feelings." I smiled again. It was the first of many nights where we just happened to meet. Each time we met, we stayed together longer and longer until we finally spent the entire night talking, laughing, and even dancing a few songs together. It seemed like she wasn't sure where this was going, and I guess I wasn't either. "Do you want to go out sometime? Dinner or something?" I asked the next time I saw her. Her eyes lit up. "Sure, just call me. You still remember my number, right?" "It's on my speed dial," I pointed out, opening the phone. I waited until Wednesday to call. No point in giving her more time to prepare than she needed. When her mom answered, I immediately knew she knew who was on the other end of the line. "Good evening, Donna. Is Carol home?" "For what?" This puzzled me a little. "Because I'd like to talk to her, if that's not too much trouble." "Steve, why do you want to talk to her?" "Damn, I hate interrogations." "Just hand her the phone if you don't mind." I heard her scream at Carol. "Hello?" "Hey, Carol, it's Steve." We spent the next 20 minutes talking about all sorts of nonsense. It was like two 13-year-olds talking on the phone for the first time. Finally, I invited her to dinner on Saturday. After agreeing, we spent another 10 minutes trying to end the conversation so as not to devolve into pointless chatter. "Then I'll pick you up at 7:30. Thank God this conversation ended when it did. Have I always been this awkward? I thought about 100 different restaurants, and even the one where I saw her with Rick, but decided that it would make the evening awkward, although it would be fair. In the end, I chose an inconspicuous place where there wouldn't be many people. When I picked her up, they looked me up and down. Her parents were friendly but wary of my intentions, especially towards their daughter. I was polite and smiled, although it was a fake smile. I just wanted to pick Carl up and leave as quickly as possible. "They're not happy about tonight, but Carol is, of course," her little sister whispered in my ear as she hugged me. I silently thanked her as Carol finally appeared. We left with the words, "Have fun." "Sorry about that." "It's okay, they're just taking care of their daughter and worrying about our past." Dinner went well, the food was great, and after a bottle of wine, we both started to relax. She was about to apologize again, probably for the 5th time that evening, when I stopped her. "One more sorry, and I'll take you home, got it?" She nodded. "Steve, I said from the very beginning that I was going to date others. You remember that conversation, don't you?" "I remember, but after 4 months and everything we went through, I thought we were, exclusive. Never in my life could I imagine you dating or even sleeping with someone else. You never said anything about others." "You're absolutely right. I think I was operating on a don't ask, don't tell basis. I started dating Rick about 4 weeks before you found out." "How many were there?" "Only 2, but I didn't sleep with either of them. I thought, thank God, but that didn't make things any easier. And if you're wondering if you had someone before him, then no, you didn't. And he didn't either. We laid everything out on the table. I just didn't want to get into a serious relationship with someone until I was settled." "How did it work?" "Not really. All Rick wanted was a steady girl who would give whenever he had a few minutes to spare. When I found out I was just one of many, I lost my temper. Let's just say when he looks at his hand in the mirror, he will remember me. After that, we went for coffee and had a heart-to-heart conversation like we've never had before. I told her that she broke my heart with what she did, and because I had feelings for her, I didn't want to share her with anyone else. Carol, I didn't want to think or worry about what you were doing when we weren't together. When you said you were busy one night or another, I now realize you were lying to me. I was your boyfriend, not Rick. I was starting to get angry again, but I remained calm. I know you hate the word sorry, but I'm truly sorry for what I did to you. You didn't deserve it. Tonight, she was right more than ever. We started dating again slowly. At first, we weren't exclusive, but when she saw me with other women, she herself asked to be exclusive. I didn't agree right away, but gave in when she said it was either this or nothing. However, I made her wait almost a week for my answer. Anger fades, especially when happiness takes its place, but one thing that doesn't return as quickly is trust. Trust doesn't just happen. It must be earned, especially after it has been violated. At first, I wanted to know where she was when we weren't together, but over time it started to drive us crazy. All these checks and calls were driving us further apart, not bringing us closer, so I stopped. I couldn't keep following her, and if she was going to cheat, there was nothing I could do about it. So I let our relationship run its course and see where it took us. Carol accepted an entry-level position at a mid-sized marketing firm. The first year she was an errand girl and did all the dirty work, but she was smart enough not to complain and do whatever was asked of her. When given the chance, she shined. It wasn't easy, but she worked hard and became successful. She wasn't just a pretty face. What about jokes about blondes? They ran out quickly. When we decided to move in together, it was a decision we discussed for about 6 months. Neither parents were happy with sticking to the old ways, but they realized that we needed to know if we could live together. We almost lived together, so we just made it official. It worked better than we expected. I thought we might have a couple of fights, but luckily we didn't. Well, at least not big ones. We divided the household chores and agreed that the first person to come home would cook dinner. Somehow, Carol always came home first, even if I had to stay with friends for a second beer after work. No one was surprised when I proposed and we tied the knot. Everyone was happy, and Carol said it was high time I asked her. I wanted a small, intimate wedding, but they overpowered me. Dad's daughter wanted a celebration because it was supposed to be her only wedding, but I just wanted her and a quiet life in the future. We didn't really need much since we combined both home environments, but that didn't stop her from signing up at every store possible. Although I wanted a fall wedding, I relented when she said that every girl dreams of a June wedding. I followed the advice of my father and her father and remained silent. Just go with the flow, and it will all be over sooner than you think. Relax, smile, and remember that this is what a girl dreams of her whole life, so don't ruin her dream. And I didn't. Thank God for the work, otherwise I would have gone crazy. She became my savior and kept me grounded while I smiled and nodded when asked about a particular color or cutlery pattern. My friends threw me a bachelor party that outshone all bachelor parties, but I told them without women. I don't remember everything except that I must have had fun. I didn't get sick, but after Friday night's fun, I didn't see Saturday morning or most of the day. Carol's bachelorette party was Saturday night, and I told her to have fun, but not too much as I was still feeling the after-effects of my bachelor party. She looked worse on Sunday morning than I did on Saturday morning. I didn't know what time she returned, but she didn't move until almost 3 o'clock in the afternoon. "Did you have fun yesterday?" I asked when she finally got up and went to the kitchen. She took a shower and her hair was still wet when she sat down at the table. "What time did you get home?" "I have no idea. All I know is that I lost dinner and most of what I drank last night in the parking lot." She laid her head on the table. It must have been one of those nights. Our wedding went off without a hitch. The bride and mothers were tense to the limit, and the men, well, drinks in hand, we just sat and watched with smiles on our faces, glad it was all over. The honeymoon was relaxing. At the tropical resort, we just sunbathed, ate, and made love every night. I really didn't want to leave, but I think even life in such a place would seem ordinary over time, although I was ready to try. A year and a half after that, everything was fine. The newlyweds' life was wonderful, and then everything went to hell. One of her friends was getting married, and three of the bride's friends, including Carol, were planning her bridal shower. Their plans fell on deaf ears. Other than being morbidly curious about what was going on, I didn't care, until I overheard two conversations that quickly changed that. "Why don't we invite the same dancers as at your bachelorette party?" Fran suggested as they sat at the kitchen table. "Just make sure Greg is one of them," Carol replied. "Katie deserves better, and believe me, he's the best. He does what other men dream and fantasize about, and he does it so damn well." They all burst out laughing at this statement. I'm not. There was a week left before the party, and I needed to find out everything I could about what was planned, and about Greg too. It's not that difficult if you know who to ask and don't spare any expense. "Denmark, I have one more task for you," I said as Keith, Denmark, and I each drank a few cold ones. "I've got my eye on a new skirt." She left the words hanging in the air, but I got the message. You get me the information, and the skirt is yours. I feel cheap when people buy me for a skirt. We all looked at each other and laughed. Here's what I need. There was a dancer who worked at Carol's bachelorette party 2 years ago, and all I know is his name is Greg. I overheard that they were planning to invite him to Katie's bachelorette party next week, and I need him to talk before that. That's not enough. Look, you know most of them, and it's not that hard to find a woman who won't talk about a hot guy. I just need to talk to him soon. Denmark missed his calling. She needed to be a private detective. It only took her 48 hours to find out his full name, address, phone number, and the date and location of the bachelorette party. I probably could have offered less, but wouldn't have gotten results as quickly. The damn skirt cost $125. I didn't have time to play, so I just picked up the phone and called him. "Greg Coleman?" I asked when he answered. "Yes, it's Greg." "Greg, my name is Keith Peterson, and I'm a good friend of Katie's." "Katie?" He sounded a little wary, I think, wondering what I wanted. "You know Katie, whose bachelorette party you'll be performing at next week." I was waiting. "Oh, that Katie. The party isn't canceled, is it? I already have 3 other guys booked for that night." He sounded worried. "No, I just want to make sure you make her night unforgettable, if you know what I mean, and I'm willing to pay you a little extra to make that happen." I cast my fishing rod and started reeling him in. "How much little more are you offering?" "Meet me, and I promise you won't be disappointed." We agreed to meet tomorrow right after work. All night my eyes never left Carol. I needed answers, and I wasn't going to ask her, at least not yet. I needed to prepare everything before I said anything, especially knowing that she would lie anyway. I've been watching the clock all day. "Come on," I continued to say until the clock struck 5. I rushed to Pat's pub, and he was already waiting for me at the counter. "Can you say it's Rick?" It wasn't Rick, but it looked almost like him, only a little bigger. 6'2" or 3", and probably weighed about 240. He had long pigtails, which he kept straightening while we were talking. It's usually the bridesmaids who arrange these things, so I was a little wary when you called. "Well, they pay the general expenses. It's just a little bonus, so there won't be any problems. Don't worry, once we start dancing, she'll be like clay in our hands. We've never sent a girl to a wedding without satisfying her completely, if you know what I mean." I ordered one more. We were chatting, and I just let this idiot talk. He said they have almost 75% of brides, but always use condoms. We can't have a white wife having a black baby out of a white wife in 9 months, can we? Besides, it's bad for business. I pulled him to the side of the boat and braced myself for impact. "Damn, I'd love to have a job like yours. Damn, I heard you had a wild night a couple of years ago with a girl I knew before she got married. Her name is Carol. Damn, that girl knew how to please and was hell in bed." I saw that he was trying to remember. Short blonde with a great ass, I nodded. Damn, she was a real tornado and wore Danny and I out for the rest of the night. For a little girl, she could handle a lot. We even worked out with her together before the end of the night. The guy she married is a really lucky guy, that's what I say. He laughed, and I faked it to confuse him. Yes, she was a real dynamo in bed, that's for sure. I paid him his blood money, we shook hands, and I walked to my car and died. This will be one of those bachelorette parties that neither of them will ever forget. Keith, Tom, David, Katie's fiancé, and I met at a bar just off University Street. No way, David shouted at us. Katie would never do what you suggest. She's so shy that we still do it with the lights off. Are you trying to tell me that she'll have sex with this Greg guy and maybe a few others? No way. Well then, it won't be a problem for you to sneak up and take a look. If you're 100% sure that Katie won't look at the other guy. The wheels started spinning. Okay, I'll go, we'll all go, and I'll show you that Katie is not like all these bitches. I'll make you eat your words. And I'll be glad to do it if you're right. For the next 3 days, I stayed away from Carol as much as possible. I told her I thought I had the flu and didn't want her to get it. More than a couple of times, she asked if everything was okay because I was acting a little distant. I just smiled and told her I loved her, and at that moment, I was still in love. On Saturday, I bribed the bouncer to let us into the adjoining room directly behind the one they rented. You gave the guy $200? Are you crazy? Keith said, sneaking into the room. Not crazy, I just need to know, that's all, I replied, hoping for the best that I was wrong. The first hour was boring. There was talk of a wedding until Tom came out and brought us another bucket of beer. The bouncer said that if something happened and we went crazy, he wouldn't know anything and would play dumb when the police came. I told him nothing would happen. I didn't trick him, did I? He asked David. We agreed that no matter what happens, it's not worth going to jail. Well, I hoped so. Then the dancers arrived and the party began in earnest. The drinks were flowing and everyone was in the party mood. Many of her single friends did everything but have boyfriends on a makeshift stage. When they brought Katie on stage, she was no longer in pain, but she still looked a little uncomfortable. After the bridesmaids brought her 3 more shots of something, and the other animals started screaming, the party got into full swing. I thought the guys were bad, but even when we were drunk, it didn't compare to what was happening. These women were going crazy, and it seemed like a mob mentality was taking over. I hoped that a taxi was then called, because there was no way that any of these women could drive. After 2 more shots, and with a little encouragement from her supposed friends, Katie began grabbing handfuls of what was being shown to her. Carol came over and kissed Greg, putting a lot of tongue into the kiss. I almost lost control when Katie stood up and started pleasing him, while Carol kissed him and let him touch her. David lost it. That damn bitch, was all he said as he paced back and forth in our hidden room. When Greg started pretending to have sex with Katie and pulled down her shorts, we decided it was time to stop it in the bud. We burst into room 1. Looking back, I'm not sure if she realized what was happening at the time since she was so drunk. You're a fucking cheater, David shouted at her at the top of his voice, and the party suddenly died down. Don't call me or try to meet me ever again, okay? The damn wedding is canceled. She simply looked at him through her drunken state as he stormed out of the room with Keith and Tom in hot pursuit. Don't mind us, just continue doing what you ladies were doing before we interrupted you so rudely. I didn't smile, but I gave Carol a look that said I knew everything. It took me 5 more beers to calm David down. We took his phone and car keys and decided it was best for him not to come home tonight. All he said was, damn that, or damn that, or that damn bitch. I was grateful when he finally fell asleep. Well, it was a fun and exciting night, Keith said as he tucked David into his guest room. I wouldn't want to be in Katie's shoes tomorrow, or for that matter, in the shoes of any of the girls who threw this party. Are you okay? I said no, but I will survive. Keith and Tom had the responsibility of babysitting David, while I collected his thoughts and headed home, not even having a plan of what to do. Carol wasn't home when I got back, so I just cleaned myself up and went to bed, locking the bedroom door. There was no point in making out this night when we were both tired and worried. It took a while, but I finally fell asleep and, amazingly, slept for almost 8 hours without a break. By 10 o'clock, I was washed, shaved, and went down to breakfast. Carol was still missing. I had made myself a big breakfast and was reading the Sunday paper when she burst in. "Very nice, Steve," she cried as she walked through the door. "We spent most of the night comforting Katie after your little raid. How could you? You know they probably won't get married now, right?" "Not my problem." "Not your problem? What the hell does that mean?" "That's exactly it. If he wants to marry a bitch, that's his business. I have nothing to do with it." "Katie is not a bitch. I can't be convinced after what I saw last night. She was almost ready to have sex with Greg when David decided he'd seen enough. It was her bachelorette party, the last time Katie could be wild before the wedding, and you can't tell me David didn't have a little fun with some dancers at his bachelor party." "No, he didn't actually. He told everyone he wasn't going to do anything because he wouldn't be able to look Katie in the eye at their wedding. I guess he was a wimp, didn't he? And just for the sake of argument, someone asked Katie what type of party she wanted. Did she want a quiet night with a few friends, or did you just assume she'd want to sleep with a complete stranger? She didn't answer. Well, I hope they make up after all. What made you do what you did in the first place? Just wanted to know which of our wives and girlfriends were real bitches, and you girls didn't disappoint. I wish I had brought a video camera. It would have been a great show for some of my friends." "And you?" "Oh, I saw enough last night, but what really opened my eyes was talking to Greg the other day when he said how lucky I was to be married to you. Well, he didn't say it outright because he didn't know who I was. It was more about how he and Danny had fun with you at your bachelorette party, about how you wore them both out. I think his exact words were something like, 'She was the hottest piece I've had in a long time, and he's jealous of the guy she's married to.' But you know what? I don't feel so lucky right now. I'd rather have a bachelor party with a dozen girls for money instead of just going out for drinks with my good friends. I'm sorry you found out this way, but it was only one night, and I haven't looked at another man since. You have to trust me on this." "Why should I, and how many more lies have you told me? Now I'm starting to doubt everything you've ever told me. Remember our last conversation about being exclusive? What about just you and me didn't you understand?" "Steve, that was before the wedding, and like I said, I haven't done anything since. So kissing that bastard, letting him touch you and turn you on for Katie is what a good wife does for a friend. What if I kissed some girl and touched her so she was ready for someone else? Would you say it's okay? I think it was cute that you satisfied him with the hand on which you wear your wedding rings. Class, nothing but class." "Steve," she began, but I stopped her by raising my hand. "Carol, I think it's best that we don't talk right now, at least until I calm down and get these images out of my head. Right now, I feel like our marriage was a complete lie from the very beginning. How many more bachelorette parties or nights with the girls? Were you a good friend? I said everything I wanted, and now I didn't want to hear anything from her. I didn't move into our spare bedroom, and neither did Carol. We slept together, but were physically and emotionally separated. We only talked about minor details of our lives and only had sex when we couldn't stand it anymore. But that was it. Something to do when your hands and fingers are tired. David and Katie, well, they're still together, but the wedding is on hold, much to the dismay of her father, who lost a ton of money on advances. She's on a tight leash, and David doesn't know when or if they'll go back to the way things were before this nightmare. It's a shame that she lost her mind and allowed others to ruin her chance at happiness. Our so-called life has continued unchanged for the past 3 months. We're still physically together, but that's it. We eat together, sleep together, but only talk when absolutely necessary. Life sucks. We both spend more time with our friends than with each other. For example, I'm tired of that damn look she gives me every time we sit down to dinner. which is becoming less and less frequent. It's like she's saying, okay, I made a mistake, forget about it, and let's move on. The problem is that I think I still love her, but the trust has almost disappeared, and I don't know if I have the strength to wait for it to come back. On Saturday, I asked her not to go out with friends and stay home, order pizza, and try to talk. Should I talk or should I shout? Was her quick answer. Perhaps a little of both. She rolled her eyes and went upstairs, apparently to get ready to leave. When she came down, she was dressed in her evening clothes. "We'll talk tomorrow," she said, walking out the door without a kiss on the cheek. I went to my desk and took out an envelope, placing it on the counter. It had her name on it, and it sat in that box for over a month. My ring came off quite easily since I hadn't had it on for so long. Now it's my turn to go upstairs and change clothes. Maybe by Monday I'll know where I'm going, but right now I feel like I've wasted the last 3 years that I can never get back. Keith and Tom think I'm a wimp and say I should have thrown her out on bachelorette night. But they still have everything that breathes, and neither of them have been with the same girl for more than 6 months, so I don't value their opinion too much. So I wait, hoping, probably, for some kind of miracle. Will Carol lose her mind that night if and when she returns home? Maybe, but now I'm not sure anymore. Is there a chance we'll start again? Not after she walked out the door tonight. Great marriage, stupid mistake, and lack of trust. Priceless, just fucking priceless. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one.